thank you for praying for us, Roxanne. It's been a hilarious start, but we're gonna get it together. We're gonna start this thing. Between the dog and Jason and the cat, faith and uncertainty.
Amen.
Okay, so before we dive into the subject, I want you to tell, I know you, right? But I want you to tell the people, whoever the people is that's watching this episode, even if it's one people, hey!
Jesus left the 99 for the one.
Come on, somebody. I want you to tell them a little bit about who you are, and just a little bit about your testimony. You know what's crazy? Like, I know you, but do I know you know you? I feel like I'm going to learn a lot tonight. While I was in prayer, I feel like the Lord was like, I don't know, kind of just showing me like the fact that you can see someone every Sunday and you can even have conversations and engage with them, but it's not until we do this, right? Have those intimate moments, even without the cameras, whatever, that we really get to know each other. And I feel like outside of the camera, we've been meaning to do this for a while.
Absolutely.
So it's crazy how it's like, hey, we're
time is
doing it
now.
on camera, right? So I'm excited to hear more about who you are and where you come from. And before we touch on like how in the world you have such faith that I've seen looking from the outside in. And I know maybe it doesn't feel that way to you, but outsider looking in, I'm like, this girl is so strong in her faith. And so I'm curious to know where that comes from.
Well, glory be to God, right? So I come from a single mother household. My dad was absent, was raised with my grandparents. Wasn't raised in the church, but my grandmother was a praying grandma.
Okay.
When we did see our dad's side of the family, my grandparents were very adamant, like, you go to church on Sundays with us. Even if that meant sit on a pew. Roxanne was never allowed to go to CCE classes. For anyone that doesn't know CCE,
I'm like, what is that?
That is Sunday school in the Catholic faith.
Oh.
Yeah, so they were Catholic.
Okay.
9 times out of 10, because it was an early morning, we were sitting on the back pew sleeping.
Got it.
But I mean, I saw my grandma's faith, things of that sort, right? And you know, childhood was great for us. I can't say that I had a bad childhood. It was, I mean, my mom had a village. Praise God.
Wow.
She had a solid village, which is, you know, for me, it's impactful. And it wasn't until my teen years where Roxanne decided to wild out. Yeah, believe it or not, I was a wild child.
I mean, it's not hard to believe. That's why we get along so well.
Oh my God.
Like we both got a little spice.
Oh my God. So it was, you know, I went through that teenage phase. And I don't know if you would say teenage, I mean 17, 16, 17, yeah.
Teenager, yeah.
Teenage phase, and then, you know, I didn't have a baby young, had him at 21. But, you know, in between those years, I was real crazy. Ended up with the wrong people, wrong time, things like that. But even in all that, I found God.
Okay, explain me. So how you go from crazy to, hey God, what's up? Like what was the introduction for you to God?
Which, crazy or not, and this is gonna sound really crazy, I was already in a very serious relationship at 17.
Wow.
Couldn't tell anyone because he was much older.
Okay. Sounds familiar.
So we would go to the club, go to church on Sunday, X's on my hand. And it was okay because I was like, there was something intriguing about church that was just drawing me in. Like, I'm like, and it wasn't the people, because I didn't have real good relationships. It was just like I would hear something, I'm like, I want to know more. Wow. But even in the wanting to know more, I was so consumed by the world. I enjoyed going to clubs, right? Because I'm just naturally a dancer, so I love to dance. I don't have to drink. I don't have to do anything. I just wanted to dance.
Yeah.
So just, you know, that kind of stuff. But I want to say that, I mean, I gave my life to the Lord early in my, 21.
Wow.
Right? And here I am, I'm about to be 33. You know, and even being early in my walk, I still fell back into sin, still fell back into the things of the world. which is all okay, right? But I think when I really encountered God was after I had my son.
Wow.
It was after I had Noah. I was in church, I was faithful, I was in the relationship, things were going good. But when I had Noah, it was life changing because I don't know if you know, I always say that I had Noah early, but I had him at 24 weeks, 6 days.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah, I
almost
didn't
6
know.
months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he weighed 1 pound 3 ounces on the operating table.
Wow.
When they took him back to the NICU, he was 8 ounces.
Okay.
So in all of that, I knew of God, but I didn't really know God. So I knew there was someone out there because I would see all these elderly ladies at church. You know, I'm very observant. So I would see them and they're like faith, and you just have to have faith of a mustard seed and this and that. So then when I had Noah, I'm like, what is this faith y'all talk about? What is faith of a mustard seed? And here I am, 21 years old, facing like, I remember before I even had him, the doctors were like, hey, you gotta get your family here. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, there's a chance we can lose you on the operating table, lose him, or lose both of y'all. And I was like at like a crossroads because I didn't talk to any of my parents at this time.
Wow.
I only talked to my grandma. So I'm like, you want me to call who? You want me to do what? So then I tell my grandma. My grandma's like, well, you know, I think that you should, Mika. Like, that way we can all pray. And I'm like, when she said pray, something resonated in my spirit. And I was like, okay. It wasn't about me in that moment.
Yeah.
It was about the situation and what could have taken place. So I remember saying, you know what, just call them. And I was like, as long as you call them, just bring me a pepperoni pizza. I'm like, if I'm about to go, like,
stop.
That's where my mind mentally went.
Wow.
Like, if I'm gonna go, if you're saying that this is a possibility, because right, I don't have big faith and I don't know God tremendously, so I'm like, I want to eat before I go. Like,
yeah,
you know, like, let's just be real.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, if they come, they gotta bring me pizza. And then so they came and the doctor's like, well, we're not gonna do the surgery till the morning. And I was like, you mean I gotta wait till the morning?
Oh man.
But realizing what I know now and looking back, it was a moment of prayer, intercession. I had a friend that came to the church and she prayed and she prayed and she prayed, and I'm like, okay, I'm just receiving it and taking it all in because I'm like, we don't really know what's to come.
Yeah. Question, did you have to stay in the hospital that night? Okay.
Yeah, I had to stay. So I had already been there 3 days.
Wow.
Because they had to give me, I don't know what they're called, but they're like shots to make sure the baby's lungs develop.
Okay.
Or at least develop as much as they could.
Okay.
So I had to be there 3 days because it was the first day and then the second day and then the third day.
Wow.
So hospital food is not for the weak.
Yeah.
And it is not for the faint. You gotta be real strong. And then, the last 24 hours, they're like, after I ate my pizza, they're like, just ice chips. And I was like, just ice chips?
Ooh.
What you mean? What?
Man.
Girl. So it was a journey, right? And I remember her coming. Then I had another friend that stayed the night with me. But the one friend, she's no longer with us. She's went on to be with the Lord. I always tell her she was a catalyst in my walk. Because she came to the hospital and prayed. She deposited seeds that I now see oh wow, this is what she was doing. And at the place, we worked together at the time.
Okay.
So we worked at it was a faith-based school.
Wow.
In River Oaks. God always put, and I'm like, now I see it and I'm like, God, you had already set me up. Like, he put me around all these people and, people of great faith.
Wow.
And I'm just like, wow. And even just, being able to pray, when you asked me, I started praying and the Lord just started bringing things up. And I'm like, wow, Lord, I forgot about that. Wow. We get so consumed in the doing of everyday life.
Yeah.
Where we forget.
Yeah. And
we just have to go back. And, and I'm like, Lord, thank you for, the time when we said, today's the day. Yeah. Right? Because we planned a few days, right? But I'm like, wow, Lord, because you knew, because He wanted me to go back. He wanted to remind me of some things, to restore my faith today.
Wow.
You know, in times of uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
In a season of, well, what does it look like? So I'm just like, just looking back, and I brought one of my books that on this journey in the NICU, I remember her name is Maureen. Okay. And she was one of Noah's nurses. And she gives me this book. And still, I'm new to the faith, and I'm like, just going by what people say. God is a good God. He's a faithful God. He's not going to leave you nor forsake you. And I didn't know these words, right, how I know them now. But I had such childlike faith back then. I remember, like, if they're saying that they're older, they must, like, because I honored my grandma in such a way. And I'm like, I'm just going to grab those words and I'm going to hold on to them. And I remember Noah was born in 2013, February 28th, which was my birthday, 2014. He had this big surgery. He had complications after complications. And I'm like, what is going on? So they're like, he's going to be in about a 14-hour surgery. They're going to do exploratory surgery to his stomach. They're going to give him a G tube, which is a feeding tube, a tracheostomy. The surgeries were endless that day. And I was like, okay. So I, of course, as a mom, sit in a waiting room. And two ladies who now serve at the church we go to went with me to be with me at the hospital. And they knew I was new to my walk. And they were just sitting there, just embracing me, just loving on me, right? And I remember, of course, it was 14 hours. They had to go. And I remember as they went, I'm in a waiting room and it's dark. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to pray. Never prayed, not by myself, right? It's always been someone activating the prayer. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to pray. And I remember this prayer was like never before. It was like I was weeping on the floor. I was, fully undone. And I remember screaming at the top of my lungs saying, God, if you're this God that everyone says, reveal yourself to me. Show me who you are. And I remember saying that for quite some time. And this nurse that I mentioned, Maureen, she came into that waiting room. She handed me this book. And the book says, Enduring Through Tough Times. And it's a prayer book, like it's a devotional. And I still have it to this day. And Noah's about to be 12. And I was like, wow, Lord, like you sent someone to give me a book just to be able to walk this journey out with me. And then it was just like every moment after that, the nurses that God would like send to his bed, right? Because we were in the hospital almost 11 months with Noah. And it was just women of faith every time I would show up. No judgment, completely allow me to be undone. Because I was a wreck, right? Had my child in the hospital. I'm a new mom. They see me come by myself, sometimes with Noah's dad, but no family. And I know that's what one of the nurses was like, I don't ever see like mom or dad, grandparents. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, I'm here, And one nurse, she was like, hey, I have a CD for you. Can I play it? And I'm like, okay, right? Because at this time I'm young, but I'm very introverted.
What?
Very introverted because it's a hospital. I'm a new mom, very uncomfortable. Everything is different for me. So I'm like, she's like, I got this CD, and I'm like, okay. She's like, I already set it up for Noah. He's been listening to it all day. Because at this time I'm a full-time student and I work.
What?
Yeah. Because I was like, well, if Noah's in the hospital, let me get some type of degree, certificate, or something. That was my mindset, to make sure that we're always stable.
Yeah,
taken care of, right? So I'm a full-time student, and I'm working, and I still come see Noah. Morning and night. So she's like, I already got set up, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, why would she do this? Like, why are these people so nice? That's what I'm thinking. And she's playing the song, and I was like, well, because I didn't understand it. I was like, so what is this? She's like, oh, it's kid worship music from CT Church. And I'm like, CT Church? And she's like, yeah, down south. And I'm like, what? I'm like, why would they sing that? She's like, oh, they come and they give stuff to all the kids. And I'm like, what? People do that?
Wow.
And for me, I'm just like, it's just those little things where I was like, wow, Lord. And then so we continue on this journey. Because it's a journey. Noah's life, I feel like me having Noah, that's how God got my attention. Because had I not had Noah, I would have been so consumed with the world. And I would have lost myself. In a domestic violence relationship, abusive, right? All the 9 yards. But Noah was my saving grace. Noah, I was able to understand what faith was. In this time with Noah, in a hospital. And I was like, okay, Lord, like, all these people are saying all of these things, but I'm like, I don't see you. Right? But that's what faith is, right? It's having full dependence on someone you can't see. Someone you can't feel, that's not tangible and not touchable, right? So I'm continuing on this journey, and I remember after all these surgeries, the doctors are like, hey, Miss Garcia, we want to sit you down and just, go over, I guess you'd say, some ground rules.
Okay.
Right? Noah's, at this point, he's very medical fragile. And he's like, they didn't know what Noah's lifespan would look like, right?
Okay.
And when you think hospital terms, their job is to give you worst case scenario, right? So I remember going home that day. I was like, okay, this is the day of the appointment. And I did what I knew. I saw the old ladies do. Okay, Lord, I need you to come in, and I need you to be my savior. I need you to give me the words. I need you to be my rescuer. Even though I'm still like, I don't know who this God is, but Noah's still here. I'm like, so he has to be real, because every time I call out, he does something or somebody shows up, right? So I sit in this room, and it's Noah's whole team. So it's a team of 12 doctors.
Wow.
And just little old me, 21 years old. And I'm like, I feel like my back is against the wall, because I'm like, man, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm a new mom. Like, Noah's my first kid. Like, for me, I'm like, I'll go to the ends of the earth to take care of him no matter the load, right? So each doctor, whether it was pulmonary, cardiologist, they all said their spiel. And the last one was pulmonary. And pulmonary is the lung doctor.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, Noah's already tricked and vent. He's like, we think he's going to be a vegetable the rest of his life. And then after he said vegetable, I went blank. And I say that I went blank because I started praying. Like, Lord, allow me to be bold to say that I'm going to do this with you. You've saved him on the 28th, and I'm going to continue to walk this out. Like, I know that 14-hour surgery wasn't for nothing. And then I feel like, I don't know, like an outer body experience, I guess you would say. Then I like came back, and I could see everyone again. And they're like, Miss Garcia, what do you want to do? I said, we're 3 months in. I said, my God is greater. My God is faithful, and my God is going to see us through. And they're like, Miss Garcia, like, are you sure? Go home and talk to family. I said, I don't need family. Have you seen me day in and day out? I've been here by myself. The only one that's been here with me is God. I said, I don't need anyone. My mind's made up. And so they're like, okay, we're going to have social worker come and see you. And I'm like, okay. Social worker in the hospital when you're in the NICU is more to see how they can help you, how they can figure out a plan.
Okay. Because I was about to fight. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we'll get there.
Okay. Oh, damn.
So then I'm like, why do I need a social worker? But I'm like, okay, it is what it is, right? Like, can't be too bad. I just defeated, like, I felt like it was a David and Goliath, and all them doctors were my Goliath, and I'm like, I'm going to show y'all.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, well, they're like, so then the social worker comes. He's like, this, they give you a plan of care. I'm like, okay. They're like, no, what? In order to go home, he has to meet these milestones. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go. Like, I'm never going to be able to take my kid home, right? But I remember, and I still talk to her today too, his speech therapist, her name was Melody. She was like, Mama, you can do this. You can take your baby home. She's like, God is big. She's like, you do exactly what God told you to do. And you're gonna make it. And I was like, wow. And I remember going home that day, I'm like, God, if people believe in me, allow me to believe in myself. Because I didn't. Wow. I would go home and cry every day. Lord, why did you give me this burden? Why did you give me this to carry? And every day I would wake up and I would remind myself of that conversation I had with Melody. My God is big. My God is greater. I can do this. And I will do this. And then fast forward to 11 months. We're supposed to be going home. I've learned everything they've asked me. I've done every class they've asked me. You name it, I've done it. Even through like the coding, like Noah's coded several times in the hospital. I've seen his body be pumped back to life, and in those moments, all I did was pray. Like, because that's all I knew to do. Was like, you see your child's body go so limp while it's on you, and then them like a rag doll just take him off and start CPR. And I'm like, and I had to learn CPR, and I had to learn how to do these things in emergency situations. And I remember every time I had to learn something new, I'm like, Lord, you gonna have to be with me because this is rough. But I learned so much at Texas Children's. I'm so grateful for the nurses. I was able. Do you ever watch like TLC?
TLC, the channel?
Yeah.
Yes. What show? Because I like Strange Addictions. I'll be watching the most.
So it was with Dr. Arnold. She's a little doctor at Texas Children's.
I've never seen that.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to send you one of her shows.
Okay.
Well, she's a doctor at Texas, or was a doctor at Texas Children's. She's relocated now. Okay. But at the time of all of this, she was running it's called a stimulation center.
Okay.
And what they did was they put emergency situations on chronic complex kids so that parents could run through these emergency situations and prepare you.
Wow.
So
like boot camp almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you're literally in like an operating room and there's like a window and they're kind of watching you and they give you like drills.
Wow.
The patient is doing XYZ. What are you gonna do? Right? So I'm like, I look back and I'm like, wow, thank you, Lord, because you set me up to succeed. Right? Like taking that class was so pivotal for Noah's walk because I would one day have to do CPR on him at home. I would one day have to do all of these things and I'm like, wow, Lord, like you just did that. And then they're like, you're gonna go home. And I'm like, okay, gonna go home.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Okay, so where is Noah's dad in this time? While you're in the hospital the whole time. The reason I ask is because it's a lot that you're going through, and I'm just curious to know like where he was at that time.
Okay, so he's in the picture because we are in a relationship.
Okay,
but he's working.
Got it.
Yes. Yeah, so he had other kids, and they were. He was going through his own custody battle with them. Okay. So we were like he had to provide to make sure things stayed stable and things of that sort. So he was there when he could be.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just the thought came to mind because when you said we were moving. Oh yeah. But then it goes back to just you at the hospital. So I'm like, okay, I was curious. I'm just asking. Yeah. Okay, so the day comes, you can take him home.
So I can take him home. And I'm like, and that's another journey too because I'm like, Lord, I don't want people in my home. Because one of the requirements was 24-hour nursing. So that means someone all in your business.
24 hours? Like living with you?
Yeah, so there would be 2 nurses on 12-hour rotations.
Got it. Okay. Whew.
Yeah. So here I am, right? And I'm like, I was prayerful though. I said, Lord, send me nurses that are going to help me, that are going to build me, that are going to equip me. Yeah. Like, that was my prayer, because I'm like, if I'm going to spend time with this person, like, I want the same relationships I made at the hospital to be the same at home. Yeah. Right? Because here I am, I'm about 1.5 years into my walk, fully into my walk, right? So I'm like, send me those nurses. So I remember Noah's first nurse on duty, a woman of great faith. Of great faith. And I remember her that day, because they're new to him. Mm-hmm. So they're very observant. Okay. But she's not new to them. She'd done home health for years. Mm. Worked in the hospitals, worked through pediatrics. And I remember that night, she helped me set everything up because I was overwhelmed. I was like in a corner crying, overwhelmed. Because I was like, yeah, I can't do this.
So when you say set it up, because I kind of have a picture, but not really. I don't want to assume. So what did you have to set up exactly for him?
So when Noah came home, he came home with his trach. So that's the trach. Okay. With all the equipment that came with it.
Trach is the thing that they put
helps
in.
to breathe.
Okay. Is a tube?
Yeah. Okay. So he's on a respirator. He's on a ventilator.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Whew. So I had to set all that up. And I'm like, they trained me, right? But when you're in that moment, it all goes out the window. You're looking at everything inside and you're like, I don't know where to start. Yeah. And I remember saying that, and I was like, good God, this is a lot. Like, I remember saying that. And she was like, it's okay. She's like, it's okay. She's like, God's going to do this. Wow. And I was like, okay, God's going to do this. And that's kind of the moment that always was like, God's faithful. God's going to do this. Like, those words of affirmation that these women constantly told me was what I built my foundation on. I grasped those words and I said, I'm going to hold on to those. Yeah. Because they must mean something. Mm-hmm. If they're still standing, if they're still walking, if they're still persevering. Yeah. So I stood on those words, right? And I walked with them. So I remember that night, she's like, you go take a bath and put on some worship music. I said, some worship music? She said, yeah, put on some worship music. Mm. I said, okay. Girl went and took a bath. By the time I came out, she had his whole room set up. Oh, girl. When I was like, wow, Lord. Like, it was like peace in his room. And then she said, don't worry about the rest of the boxes. We'll get that as the week goes on. We'll figure. She's like, I'm going to bring a few things for you. And I'm going to get it set up. And I'm like, okay. All right. I was real uncomfortable because I'm like, at this point, I'm real introverted. Whew. You would have not, the Roxanne you know now to the Roxanne then. Wow. I didn't leave my house. I was so consumed with all things Noah. Yeah. That I didn't have interaction or community with the body. Wow. Because I was so consumed with all things Noah. Yeah. But even in that, God sent people, right? It was nurse after nurse after nurse. And I remember one night I was so flustered. This is maybe year 3 into my walk. Okay. We still had home health care 24 hours. Wow. Noah had 24-hour nursing up until like 3. Okay. Wow. Up until like 3. And then I was like, okay, we got to drop it down to like 18 hours. And then like 16 hours. Mm-hmm. But there was this one night where I was so flustered. And I remember saying, Lord, like, why can't these nurses just get it together? Like, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And here I am, I'm complaining. And I'm waiting outside for this nurse because she's late. And she'll know where my house is. And then it was the first time I ever felt conviction. Because as she walked up, she's dressed like a nun. And she said that her name is Sister Magdalene.
Wait. I'm sorry, sister.
I'll never forget this day.
I'm not laughing at your name, sis. Sister Magdalene. It's your face. I love it.
No, a true story. I remember and she had the heaviest accent, sis. So one, I can't even understand her. But I remember Sister Magdalene.
Okay.
Felt like she was there to put me into shape.
Wow.
To stick that word on me.
Okay.
She was the one that was like, every day she would be praying over Noah. We had her for about 6 weeks. He shall live and not die. He shall live and not die. I remember she would go up and down his room, just declaring the word over him. The Lord sent her because the same things that she would do, fast forward to maybe Noah was 9 when he got his VNS, and it's a pacemaker for his epilepsy.
Okay.
So in this moment, it took me 2 years. I truly sought the Lord on this procedure. 2 years before I got a yes.
Okay.
Because I just could not do it. And I remember when I got my confirmation from the Lord to do it, he took me back to that Sister Magdalene. And he showed me her. And he said, remember how she would declare my word over him. Remember how she would do that. So here I am in the hospital when God is showing me all this. And I go to Noah, he's sleeping so peaceful. He shall live and not die. He shall live and not die. You gave him to me. Like I would declare these things over him and speak life into him. Lord, align his body back up to your word. What's not in your will, remove it, Lord. Align his doctors up. Right? Not knowing that as I'm doing these things and activating something that I thought was in him, God is truly activating something in me. He's restoring a faith that was once lost. He's telling me, my daughter, you know my words. Speak them and allow yourself to come back to life. Because in that moment, I allowed fear to consume me. But God was like, all you needed was a little faith. I didn't ask you for much faith. I just asked you for a little. Wow. And I remember in the hospital room, like...
Hold on real quick. Cookie. Oh my God.
I mean, you bought a zoo.
I know y'all heard him barking. Okay? I tried to ignore it. I didn't want y'all to call them people on me. So I let him outside. Let's pray that he don't scratch at the door and interrupt the conversation. Okay. So he gives you confirmation that you're supposed to do this surgery, which I'm guessing that it was a high risk surgery. Why you would have some pause and even wanting to do it?
It was just the fact that it was an implant.
Okay.
And it was like something that would go to the chest up to his brain. Like it connects to the vagal nerve.
Okay.
So it was very unsettling with me. Right? But he took me back to Sister Magdalene. And he reminded me of the things that she showed me. And she showed me these things, right? So I was like, okay. So I remember in the hospital room, like, okay, Lord, I'm going to do this. I'm going to declare your word over him. And even though I'm scared, I'm going to have faith and I'm going to tell these doctors yes. Because they waited for me for 2 years. Because I told the Lord, if I don't have peace, I'm not going to do it. And so I did. And I remember my husband, he was like, babe, just do it. Do it scared. And I'm like, but I don't want to do it scared. And he's like, childlike faith. And I'm like, okay. And I feel like, because my husband was raised, his parents are pastors.
Okay.
So he always tells me, like, I don't know if it's something in him. He always reminds me to go back to that childlike faith. Like, even to this day, he's like, you might not believe, but I have faith to believe. And I'm like, wow. Even in times where I really am uncertain, where I want to play God in a situation, let's be real.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, baby, I just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like on Noah's journey, there's been many times where my faith has truly been tested. And it's like, are you going to surrender him to me? Or are you going to keep holding on? And I was like, then one day, girl, I had to look up the word surrender. Like, let's just keep it above.
Okay, well, what does it say?
To fully release. Give control.
My Lord. It's not just, it don't mean partial?
Like no. Had nothing to do with partial. Nothing to do. And then I looked up the word endure. Ooh. And it means to suffer. Ooh. To go through.
My Lord.
And I said, okay, Lord. I'm going to surrender. And I'm going to go through it. But I'm going to have great big faith. And I was like, I remember that night before the surgery, me and my husband were praying. I said, Lord, this surgery is going to be life-changing for him. And I started declaring things that I needed in this season that Sister Magdalene had already activated. Wow. I just had to grasp back onto it. And I'm like, so there I go. And I start praying and nurses are coming in and I've never encountered a nurse after Noah's 3rd year ever say anything about my faith, my worship music in the hospital setting. Like, Noah goes into a procedure, a surgery. Hey, what does he need to go back to be comfortable? I said, Brandon Lake, elevation worship.
Come on.
Right? That's his comfort because of where we started with that one CD in the NICU. Off a CD. He has worshipped his way through everything. And I just look at Noah and I'm like, you keep giving me faith because you show me what doctors said was impossible for man. But with God, all things are possible. Like, Noah has superseded everything every doctor said he would not do. And I'm just like, wow, Lord. Like, you are good, you are faithful. And I'm like, and you are worthy to be praised. So Noah loves to worship. I don't know about, like, he's a worshiper, right? I'm like, right, but I'm like, even then, there's moments where I'm like, Lord, let me have faith like Noah. Because I know, like, when Noah worships, when we're at home and tears start rolling down his face, I'm like, Lord, let me see what he sees. I'm like, I want to be so deep in your presence where I want to just see what he sees. And I'm like, Noah, keep giving me faith. Keep allowing me to stand on God's word. Right? So I'm just like, God, it's just trial after trial after trial. But God remained faithful in all of it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, because you made mention about your husband. My boy Sway, shout out. But I wonder, so you're going through all of this. You're in a relationship. That relationship, obviously, you guys separate.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So how does Josue, how does he come into the picture? Because you, like you said, you were so focused. It was all things Noah. So how did he kind of shoot his shot? How did that even happen?
Funny story, and he has his own story, which, we'll let him.
Yours is the truth. Don't worry.
Mine is definitely the truth. So me and Noah's dad, I knew it was ending because God had already told me. God had already told me I was okay to walk away. Right? Things were uneasy. Relationship was very unstable. And I was just at my wit's end, right? I was like, I'm not going to do this no more. And it's the smile. And I shot my shot.
You shot What?
So he had, and mind you, I wasn't looking for a relationship because I was still living with Noah's dad, and I knew it was wrong. But I mean, I was just like, when you're done, you're just, and you don't have no accountability, you're going to do things wrong.
Yeah.
Because they seem right to you in the moment.
Yep.
And my flesh was definitely fleshy.
Okay.
Let's just keep it 100.
Yes.
And take some accountability for my wrongs. So I saw him. We went to high school together. We had mutual friends. So I saw he posted a post that his knee was messed up. And I was like, let me just, So I said, my response to him was, I hope you feel better. I'll be praying for you.
Okay.
Right?
Very demure. Do they still say that? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't even know if that was a thing then. So I said that, and he perceived it as, let me add her on Snapchat.
Okay. So I'm going to take it a step further.
Okay. So then that was at the time where you were just putting your screens on so people could add you. So he added me, and he was like, hey, I know you mentioned prayer. Can you pray for me? I'm going to go get my plumbing license. And I said, sure, no problem. I'll be praying for you. Keep me posted, right? Because at this time, I'm like, we can just be friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have Noah. I'm trying to get out of something. Like, I wasn't really looking for nothing serious.
Okay.
So then my work day goes by, and no one texts me in this moment, right? So I'm like, why my phone vibrating? I'm like, so then I get a text message. It wasn't a text message. It was like a Snapchat. Someone inboxed you, and I'm like, what the heck? So then he was like, hey, just finished my test. It went really well. I feel really good about it. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Right? Like, I didn't know it, because I'm real, don't know how to, no punchlines, no nothing. Your girl ain't got no swag. I just didn't know how to do it. I couldn't do it, right?
I ain't got no game.
Like, nothing
to the point.
at all.
Oh, my God.
So then I was like, okay. Few days go by, and he's like, hey, I passed my plumbing test. We should go celebrate. And I said,
Sway.
So then I'm like, well, celebrate what? Like, oh, okay, that's cool, whatever. And then he puts like a picture of his car. He had a nice car then. It was a black Cadillac. And I was like, wow, you have a nice car. And he was like, my car's looking for a model. He shot his shot.
Again. Sway.
So then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can, meet up one day. And in this particular moment, I was in a dark place. I had stepped away from the church.
Okay.
So I was doing some things that, I would say I wouldn't be proud of now, but I had turned to alcohol to suppress what I was going through.
Yeah.
So I remember him saying, well, let's go to the movies. And I'm real uncomfortable at this point, because I'm like, yo, I've never dated. I don't really know what dating is. You want to pick me up. I was real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can you pick me up from Chulas? You know what Chulas is?
Isn't that a restaurant? Mexican restaurant?
Yeah, it's like a sports bar.
Okay.
Mexican restaurant.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get drunk. And then I'm going to go on this date with him.
Okay. What a plan.
Even still going on this date, I'm still praying. Because I knew that I'm like, Lord, I've never been on a date. I'm sorry, I'm getting drunk. I'm repenting while I'm talking to him. Because I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have been doing it, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go on this date. I don't really know how I'm going to feel. I was like, but if I'm supposed to be there, give me something, give me a sign or something.
Yeah.
So then we go on this date, and it was one of the best dates I've ever had. He opened the door for me. It was really like, he didn't try to make any moves. I was going to go pay for my ticket. He's like, no, I invited you. And I was real weirded out. But when we're leaving, there was chaos on my phone because Noah's dad, right? Okay. We were separated. Okay. So there was chaos. And I was just like, and the Lord was like, step away from drinking. As we're driving home, and I'm like, so I'm having a conversation looking out the window with the Lord. Like, I feel like that's how he talks to me. So I'm like, Lord, sober me up. And I'm asking him these things as Josue's driving me home. Wow. And as I get off the car, I feel like so audible. I heard the Lord say, that's your husband. And I'm like, Lord, I ain't even out there in a relationship. What you mean? But I'm like, okay, well, let me take things really slow with him. Let me make sure I'm out of this household.
Yeah. And you and your ex were not married. Y'all were just got it.
We weren't married. He is married.
Okay.
So therefore, we would never have been able to get married. And that's another story for another day.
Okay, got it. Gotcha. Got it.
So I'm like, when I left that night, something was different. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh yeah, I can't. No, I gotta leave. I have to leave because he showed me different. Like, he didn't try to hit on me. It was just very smooth sailing. And I had been praying for a man to sweep me off my feet. To like, Lord, I wanted someone just like my grandfather, because I had already lost my grandfather. And my grandfather was my world. So I would pray, be like, Lord, I want someone just like my grandfather. I want someone to care for me the way he did for my grandmother. My grandmother was my grandpa's world. She said jump, he said how high, baby. So I remember wanting that. So as time went by, me and Josue were having conversations and things are getting serious. And because I saw my mom with multiple men, I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do with Noah. So I was very guarded. Okay. And I'm living at my grandma. I had left the relationship, living at my grandma's at this time. And I remember her telling me, like, give him a chance. Let him meet Noah. I'm like, no, Grandma, I'm not ready. And she's like, I think you should. And I'm like, wow, she saw something in him that I couldn't see. So I'm like, one day he's like, hey, let's go to breakfast. We would always either do like the gym together, 5 a.m. gyms.
Wow.
We would go to his CrossFit, or we would go to Planet Fitness, or whatever the case was. And so this time he's like, hey, let's go to breakfast. And I'm like, well, let me see if I can get a sitter, because I never brought Noah around. And he's like, well, I think at some point I'm going to have to meet your son to see if this is even worth pursuing. Wow. That was his response to me. Wow. And I was like, give me a few moments. And I had to go talk to my grandma about it, because I'm like, Grandma, I don't know. Like, every time I've done something, I've steered myself wrong. So I wanted, someone that, she was married 50 years. I'm like, Grandma, I need a little bit of advice here. Give me some words. So she's like, he has a point. She said, you don't want to get too far in where you really catch feelings. And then there be a heartbreak because Noah can't connect with him. She's like, she told me, I'll never forget what my grandma said sitting on the table. She's like, this is going to require big faith. She said, because now your child's involved. Oof. She used to always tell me that. She's like, it's different when your child is involved. So I was like, so then I text him back. And I'm like, okay. I said, but you can't pick me up. I'm going to take my own car. Okay. Because I'm like, if I get uncomfortable, Noah doesn't like it. Like, we got to bounce. Yeah. We got to get out.
Not you planning the exit, though.
I always had a plan B. Yeah. Right? But I'm like, even though I always had a plan B, God always had plan A. So we go, and we meet at this restaurant. And he's not there yet, but I'm there. And I'm like, I feel like internally I'm hyperventilating.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at the table, hands sweaty, it's like playing. I'm like, what is going on? And he gets there. And I feel like it was a match made in heaven. Him and Noah, like their eyes just clicked. And Noah instantly felt love. There was an instant connection. And I was just like, wow. And it was from that moment where Josue was like, something's different about him. And I was like, I couldn't even process the situation because I'm like, wow, I just took a big step.
Yeah.
I was really uncomfortable, but my kid loves him. Like, my kid likes him. So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go home. And he's like, okay. He's like, what are y'all doing next weekend? And I'm like, nothing. Try to find plan B. Like, try to find something to do in the moment, but I ain't got nothing to do.
Got him.
Okay. And I'm like, and he's like, let me take you and Noah out somewhere. And I'm like, oh, no. Like, it's real uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Because it really was. It required a lot of me. And it was an uncomfortable season because in that season I'm having to figure out Noah's dad too. Because it wasn't a nice breakup. Okay. It was very toxic, right? Okay. So I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Like, do I go out with him? I really like him, Lord. Yeah. But I got this up back here. Yeah. And I don't know what to do. Yeah. And so then I would go and I would pray. Like, all week I'm praying and the Lord's like, no, go. No, go. And it's every time I went, Josue was my sense of peace. Like, there was no worry in the world with him. And he was always edifying and uplifting and always like, hey, don't worry, have faith. Like, God's going to take care of it. Hey, no worries, God's going to do this. Like, always pushing me. Right? So then I'm like, even with that, like, Josue's faith is unmatchable. Like, and he may not show it, but, his faith is unmatched. Like, there was a time, fast forward maybe like 2 years into our relationship, because I didn't know we was in a relationship, but he didn't ask me to be his girlfriend.
He didn't need to.
But we just happened to, flow. Let's not fast forward that quite. Okay. Let's go back a little bit. Okay. Chaos is still going on. Right? But Josue, we're like 6 months in to this situationship. Okay. We're going to call it. Okay. For now. Because I still wasn't his girlfriend at the time. Okay. But I'm hit with having to expose myself on a whole different level with him. Where I was real uncomfortable. In a sense of, hey, I have CPS on my door. So Noah's dad was calling CPS on me. That I was abusing my son. So I had to really humble myself. Wow. And tell this person that I wasn't even dating, wasn't my boyfriend, that here I am now and I have a CPS case. And I remember turning to the Lord and saying, Lord, this can't be possible. Like, not again. And I remember, you know what? Honesty is key. It's gotten me this far. I'm just going to be honest with him. Yeah. And give him the moment to decide if he wants to stay or he wants to go. Right? And leave that up to him. Yeah. So I tell him the situation, but Josue's known everything. I've never hid that I was still living with Noah's dad. Like, I've never hid any of that. Okay. All of my mess has always been exposed to Josue. So when CPS comes, and I get the call while we had a Rockets game on a date. So I don't got a choice but to really tell him and really expose myself. Because I'm like, saying, like, this is embarrassing. Like, really embarrassing. And so I tell him, and I remember us leaving that Rockets game. He's like, man, don't you worry. Like, you know the God we serve? And I'm like, I'm not walking with the Lord. Like, right now, in this moment, I'm like, it's just me and my flesh. Okay. And he's like, you know the God we serve? He's like, you're not scared of that, are you? He's like, you know you're a great mom. He's like, I've seen it, and Grandma sees it. He said, don't let the enemy fool you. And it was always edification in that sense with him. So I'm like, you know what, you're right. You're right. And the cases went on for a little while. Mm-hmm. It would be an open case, closed case, open case, closed case, open case, to the point where I almost lost custody of Noah because of the allegations. And it was just heavy, but I tell Josue all the time, like, in that season, Josue was my saving grace. He reminded me what faith was. Wow. He reminded me who I needed to go to, who I needed to surrender to. It wasn't ever like, oh, we got this. It was never a we, it was a him. And he always pointed me back to him. Always. And still to this day, that's what he does. Like in times of like, where my flesh wants to rise, or, you know, in a co-parenting situation, Josue's always been the one to be like, God's seen us this far. What makes you think that he won't continue to see us through? And I'm just like I always tell him, like, you have no idea the impact that you've made on my life. So that's how I got with my husband.
Wow. For Josue to come into your life and click so well with Noah, how did you express that to him as far as like, hey, this is my son, this is the situation? How did you have those hard conversations? Hey, I'm still technically in this relationship, I'm trying to get out. Because I feel like it takes even a measure of faith to be that honest and upfront with everything. Like, hey, this is my life. Because you liked him. So what was that like to be that open with your life to someone, and then basically giving them the reins to say, you can choose me or not, this is what it is?
I feel like it was easy because I knew I wanted different, and in order to get different, I had to truly just, put it all out there. Yeah. Right? And let him say, because then I thought of, well, I could lie and cover it up. Yeah. But how long could I cover it up? How long did I have to go with that? So I'd rather just be honest and open with him. Yeah. And really just, like, let him put it out there, right? Yeah. Yeah. But then it even, and I guess this is the kind of like the behind the scenes that people don't really think about when you go to like co-parenting is, he didn't have kids. So now here I am stepping into a relationship with a man, has no kids, and his whole family's watching. So I have to have these hard conversations with him, but he has to have them with his mom, his dad, his sisters. And it was also their choice to love and embrace Noah the way he did. And even that, like, I remember the day he was like, I'm going to tell my mom, like, that me and you are serious. I want them to meet Noah. I was, that breath you just took, that, baby, that was me. Yeah. Because it was scary. Yeah. And it was different because I knew rejection. So I didn't want my baby to feel rejection. Or, so I'm like, I don't know. And Josue's like, my parents aren't like that. Like, they're going to love Noah. And I'm like, okay, what do I have to lose? Like, what do I have to lose? Yeah. So we meet the in-laws. Because I was already speaking into existence. Okay. Listen. What's up, mama? Okay. And I knew in that moment when I met them, they needed to see Noah in his wheelchair. I needed to show them Noah the way Noah would be. Yeah. right? So, and that showed me their love and how they raised their son, because the moment they saw Noah, they didn't see Noah's wheelchair. They saw Noah for Noah. And they embraced him and they prayed for him. Oh yeah. I mean, they just wanted to love on him. And the bond that my baby has with Josue's mom, I mean, he's always wanting to be in her arms. He's always wanting to love her. But, and I believe it's the Jesus that lives in her. That he's just so like he gravitates to her naturally. Yeah. And to this day, they still love and adore Noah the same way they did the first day they met him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So I have a question that came to mind. So I know you said during this time where the CPS stuff was happening, the split was kind of messy with the ex. During this time we were in our flesh. So when was the transition? Because I did not meet you in your flesh. I have only known you as crazy on fire for God, like super mom, amazing lover of God, lover of worship, like amazing encourager. Like I've only known this person. So when was the transition back to who you are today?
When Josue invited me to his mom's church. And I always tell him, I'm like, you set me up for failure.
In the best way.
In the best way. Cause I only knew the church that I went to, right? The church I was saved in and things like that. I didn't know different denominations then.
Okay.
Like, you know, Baptist, Pentecostal, things like that. So his parents are Pentecostal.
Okay.
So they all wear skirts.
Okay.
And Josue didn't tell me that.
You showed up, you pulled up in the jeans.
Yeah. Like, what? So I show up in jeans.
I'm sorry.
And I remember feeling like, in my flesh, like, this boy did not tell me to wear a skirt. But it was in that moment, the way his family embraced me in the church is what brought me back to the church. Because they didn't see my jeans. They didn't see my tattoos. They didn't see my full face of glam. They saw me as me. And they embraced me. And they loved me. Like, and that's what brought, like, that was my pivotal moment. And it was just, I mean, just to walk in there and just to feel like, oh, no one's staring at me. No one's, and Josue assured me, he's like, they won't judge you. Like, come as you are. And I'm like, no. But I didn't know when he said come as you are, that he never said, like, the skirts. Like, you know, and I'm like, I look at it now and I'm like, you know, like I love that they didn't change who they were and I didn't change who I was.
Yeah.
And we just meshed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that moment. That was pivotal for me.
And you would have never experienced that love had you, or not experienced it, but you wouldn't have seen it in that way if you were dressed the same.
Yeah.
I think even the difference in the clothes was like God trying to show you something. Even
the culture difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
That we can all come together.
Yeah.
Right? Because like his mom didn't wear makeup, like things like that. But that didn't matter to them. Yeah. I mean, there was even a language barrier. And she didn't let that stop her from communicating with me. Wow. She didn't let that be a factor. Wow. And I even think just that moment was pivotal. And, you know, just, it allowed me to see people for people. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I was just in awe. Like, in the beginning, I felt how to be a part of a family. Right? I found my community in his family. And they may not know it, but they were, the way that they embraced me, like, it was huge for me. And it definitely restored my faith in that season. Wow. That family may look different, but we come back together. Yeah. In times of need. Yeah. right? And I was very open with all of them about Noah. And we got some pushback from the beginning, but that was all okay. Like, God had already set all that up. Yeah, it was all God. I tell us all the time, God knew exactly what I needed. I was like, and He still shows me, right? And it's, and I think of in Scripture where it says, "Where I'm weak, He is strong," right, and vice versa. That's what I needed in this walk. Was for someone to encourage me when I was weak, and to remind me of my self-worth and who I was, and that I was a daughter of a king first before I was Noah's mom. And Josue's done that for me. You know what I mean? Like, he's restored my faith in so many different levels. Like, when I thought all hope was lost, when I was like, no one's gonna love me, I have a child with special needs, like, just not even, that's just a child, and then you add special needs to it. And Josue's faith was bigger than mine at sometimes. And I'm like, but God already knew. He did. And I'm like, God gets all the glory for this story.
Literally. I promise you, when I first met y'all, nobody could have told me that Noah was not biologically Josue's son. Like, when I found that, I'm like, oh, what the heck? Like, the way how they bond.
Oh, yeah.
Girl.
You would think that Josue had him. And, like, if I came into the relationship and that was his son. Seriously? No lie. And I'm like, I'm the odd one out.
No, for real.
Yeah. No. Like, I mean, Josue is, like, so unmatched.
He is. He truly is.
Like, bro.
That man was, like, when I tell you, it's like y'all were made to come together. Like, it's so crazy just to see how God literally put that together, because it doesn't feel awkward, or you can't even tell. It's just seamless. So, and that one question that comes to mind is, how do you keep faith in uncertainty now, knowing how it feels to step out of your faith and into your flesh now? I mean, I'm sure it doesn't make it any easier. I mean, life is still happening. Things still come. Hardships still happen. So how do you not step out of your faith now? Like, what does that look like for you?
I think now not stepping out of my faith requires me to have accountability. And letting those people into that are very close to me, in my circle, very close. Because we are human, right? When times get hard, there's a moment where I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. But then God always comes in. He's always very quiet. And He always reminds me. Josue cries every time I tell him. God always tells me, I've never left you nor forsaken you. So don't leave me now. And that's every time my faith is tested, where there's a moment where I'm like, I'm at a crossroad, right? Things are heavy. God always comes in and reminds me of that. And if it's not His voice, He sends a messenger to remind me. And I want to say the last time, let's be real, was about maybe like 2 months ago, where I was just like, Lord, I'm tired of therapies. I'm exhausted. I'm driving all the time. And the Lord's like, it's because you haven't surrendered it to me. Give it to me. And I'm like, yes, Lord. And it's in those moments where I do say like this and fully surrender, where things just line up. And I'm like, I have to stop trying to control situations with Noah and just let God be God, and know that I have enough faith to move that mountain that's in front of me, because God's done it time and time and time again. Right? And I'm like, I even think about Noah's back in horseback riding, and I remember why we stepped out, because we were going through the custody battle. So I couldn't be committed to it. And I remember telling God, like, God, he needs that therapy so bad. And God was like, well, if you let me do it, I can put you at the top of that list. And I remember, like, I'm gonna apply. And I applied. And the lady responded, we have a wait list, but I feel that I'm supposed to let you in. And I'm like, Lord, you know his needs. But it's those little things that God's like, let me show you what I can do for you. And he continues to show me through the little things. It's those little moments. And, you know, one thing about me and on this journey is I know when I'm drifting. Okay. I think as believers, we have to recognize when we're falling or when we're drowning and we're like, help. And I know sometimes that's hard for people to do. But when I saw myself drifting, I had to reach out to my therapy team, because I do have counselors on standby. That's one thing that on this journey I've kept up with. Okay. It's counseling. Wow. One, because I need to be able to pour out what I'm carrying, right? I've got into faith-based support groups with moms of special needs kids, where there's a lot of people say, oh, it's familiar. And I'm like, I don't think it's familiar, because every journey is different. But there is that level of understanding. Yeah. But even through that level of understanding with this support group, everyone's always pointing you back to Jesus. And I remember telling, like, even that, like, God, I need some people, which I love my body of Christ. Get Wrapped has been on point, right? But I'm like, I need some women that have the same faith that I do when it comes to medical stuff. Yeah. Right? Because we're constantly, and you know, this is one thing that I tell people all the time. When you go into the medical world, you're getting beat up left and right. I'm like, and you go from therapy to doctors to therapy to this, meeting with insurances. You have all these different nonprofits, these programs you can get into. That stuff is heavy, because it's always a, well, your kid can't do this and your kid can't do this. So I have to know that my faith is so much bigger that every giant that I face, that God is going to come through. Because I'm like, you know, once a year we sit in these IEP meetings, and they list the list, you know, when God says he keeps no record of wrong, maybe the schools keep record of wrongs. Noah can't do this, Noah can't do this, and Noah can't do this, and Noah can't do this, and this, right? So these are things that we get hit with, right? And so, but before I go into these things, I feel like God gives me a new level of faith every time that I go in. And I told this year that Noah went into school, I said, Lord, give me a faith that I'm so bold with your word in those schools. And when I walk, they know that I walk with the Lord. And I have so many of Noah's teachers on my Facebook. So they know that like I'm a believer. I wear Jesus shirts to school, and they're like, you know. But one thing this year, Noah loves to lay hands on people, and you know that.
I know. I've gotten the privilege.
So Noah does it every day at school. And I get pictures from his teachers, his counselors, of Noah actively laying hands and praying.
At school.
And when I pick up teachers will be like, hey, Noah, pray for me today. And I'm just like, I know Noah's mission now. I know what you've called him for, Lord. It doesn't mean a voice. My faith has carried us through this time. But it's going to be his faith that catapults the next generation. His teacher's so on fire for God right now. Just through him. I think of even, love needs no words. Sometimes we're so big on, man, what can you do for me? What can you say to make me feel good? And here I look at Noah and I'm like, love needs no words, but a sweet touch from heaven. Right? And I even think it goes a little deeper with Noah. The aroma he carries. Like, he is the light, and he carries that light with him everywhere he goes. And I think those things that his school sends me is what keeps me going. It's what keeps me rooted and grounded. Yes, the word and reading scripture, and those are all things that we know we should be doing. But it's when your child actively, with no hesitations, know who God is, and he don't care who's watching, that is like, wow, Lord, that's that childlike faith. I'm always praying, like, Lord, allow me to continue to have that childlike faith, where it doesn't matter who's in the room. As long as it's me and you in communion, nothing else matters. And I think that's like, Noah. And I love my other babies, right? And they have their own struggles and trials, but Noah's what keeps us, like, his faith. It's matchless.
Yeah. It's crazy. Because as you were talking, I'm like, man, the thought in the back of my mind is always like, Lord, it kind of reminds me of when there was a child that was born blind in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And they ask, what did the parents do? And Jesus says, this was for the glory of God, and things like that. Whenever I see things with kids, like, it's something that I can't fully grasp, and it always like bugs me, because I'm like, Lord, like, why? Like, I don't get it, And I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and you said, as you're explaining Noah's life, this is all we want for our kids as parents. We want them to love God. We want them to walk in his purpose. We want them to spread his love. We want them to be happy, to be joyful. Noah's living that.
Mm-hmm. Despite all he has. But to him, there's nothing wrong with him. He's perfect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no, like, but why? And I think for me, that's, like, an outsider looking in, it's like, I'm asking the question, like, but why? When I have a dear friend that lost a child, I'm like, but why? I struggle with these things. But I'm hearing you talk, and again, it's just like, it just highlighted in my mind, like, that is all every parent wants for their children. Whether your child is here, whether your child is in heaven, whether your child is with special needs, whether your child isn't. Like, as believers, that's all we want for our children. And if they're living that, then they're living a life worth living, a life full of purpose. Yeah. And so, I don't know, like, I feel like it just broke something in my thought process right now that's like, there's your answer. You always want to know but why. Yeah. There's no but why. He is living the dream. He is living the dream that I have for my kids. Yeah. He is living that dream. Unrestrained, unhindered, undistracted.
We put those restraints.
Mm-hmm.
We're distracted by the devices. We see his flaws, right? But God makes no mistakes. God created him, right? And you know, when God made that real to me, for me to understand that, was with watching The Chosen. You know that scene?
Yeah.
What do they call him? Little Samuel? Or Little Samuel? Or
that's the one with the disability, right? I don't remember
I think
if it was
big.
little or big.
Yeah, something like that. But it was that scene when he tells God, like, why can't you heal me? And God's like, it's not that I can't heal you, but how much more people would come to me through seeing you do what you're doing right now. That scene changed my life. And yes, there's moments where I'm a selfish being, where I'm like, I do go the but why. And God has to remind me of some things, right? And one thing that Josue's always spoke this. And I think it's what's kept us grounded and not going off on the deep end. Is whether we see Noah's healing here or in heaven, we know that he's walking and living in God's purpose. Like Josue says that all the time. And that really keeps me, like, I may never see his healing. I may never see him walk. But I know that one day he will. And I think that's what keeps me in a place of humility. Right? Because, you know, kids is a very big struggle for me. Because I do find myself in the, man, my baby can't play sports or my baby can't do this. And God's always like, but your baby knows how to lay hands. Your baby knows how to worship. He's like, how many parents desire for your kids to worship at the level that Noah does? He's like, so don't worry about the sports. Don't worry about the things he can't do. And I'm like, wow, Lord, you're still good. And then I know going into 6th grade, one of the, my mama heart was like, Lord, let these kids see Noah for Noah. Because 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade is ruthless. Because on our school, in our district, it's a middle school. 5th and 6th grade is middle school.
Wow.
So Noah's in middle school. So I was very, my faith and uncertainty going into 5th grade. It was a new school, new campus, new friends, new teachers, everything new. And I remember finding myself praying and asking the Lord, let the kids like him. Let them embrace him. And it was to a point where I was like, as long as Noah has the best set of shoes, kids won't be able to make fun of him. Right? Like, that's where my mindset was this year. And God was like, let him wear his Mickey Mouse shoes. Let him wear what he wants to wear. Let him be who he is. And you let me handle the rest. And I text you that, today's been rough. But it's even in the little things. 2 little girls today, no special needs, no nothing, normal kids. 2 little girls walked Noah out and was like, man, Noah's one of my greatest friends. And I said, wow, Lord, my faith was tested sending him to school. I wanted to homeschool him so bad. But God's like, if you would have homeschooled, those kids would never know what it's like to embrace Noah. And he reminded me that today. And I sat in that parking lot and I cried with all of my kids behind me, and I cried because God's like, this is your why. Keep letting him do what I have him doing. And I'm just like, wow, Lord. Okay. Because those little girls didn't see wheelchair. They didn't see a mute Noah. I see that. And I want to protect him. But it's another moment where I have to say, open hands. Go Noah. Right? Because as the seasons progress, my faith is going to get tested time and time again. And all God's doing in these seasons with us is sharpening that area of faith. Because it's never going to go away. But the way we deal with it is up to us. So I was like, when I saw those little girls, smile from ear to ear. And it's just in different occasions. And just, Josue experienced one the other day. Was like, hey, Noah, remember I saw you at HEB? When he walked Noah in. And we were on, what break was it? They just came off of like Christmas break. That break, we saw a few of his friends at HEB. And he was in his wheelchair. And the little boy's mom was like, no. You could tell, like, she was like, no, don't talk to him. But he's like, nah, Mom, that's not for Noah from school. Right? So I was like, wow, Lord, like, you want me to expose him. I've sheltered him. I've hindered him. But you've called him to be out there. You put him in a wheelchair for your purpose and your story. Who am I to say no? So we just gotta keep going.
I know, that was so good there. Wow, sis. I'm in awe. Like, we're supposed to end this. I don't even know how long we've been talking. We've been talking for a minute. But, hey, y'all. I forgot y'all were here. It was a whole moment. I think a good way to end it would be, I was going to say offer some encouragement. I'm like, I feel so encouraged. But I know that there's a lot of people that don't know the Lord that are having their faith tested. It may not be a child with special needs. It may not be the exact story that you have, or it might. Wherever the Lord leads you and how you're going to communicate. But I just want you to offer some encouragement to someone who's struggling in their faith right now. And you know what? I think let's talk to the parents of special needs children, but also want you to talk to people that are just struggling. And it might be in whatever area in their life is just a hard thing. And they're tempted to go back in, flesh mode. So I want you to offer them some encouragement. And really, this is so freestyle because it's like whatever the Lord puts on your heart for you to say. You have full reign on this little podcast to just speak, because with breaking comes anointing. And you have went through so much breaking, but it has not been in vain. There is an anointing on your life, the way that you communicate, the way that you encourage, the way that you live your life is an encouragement to others. Whether you're speaking or you're not, people are watching. And so now I want to give them a chance to hear you. For the people who probably see you and don't know, or they see you and there's something about you, they just don't really know where this stuff comes from. I just want you to offer them some encouragement, because girl, you are anointed for this. And I really hope that you take God up on his, and I don't want to call it an offer, but his drawing for you to speak to women, for you to speak to people that, I don't know, of all walks of life. I just see you having these conversations, and y'all heard it here first, okay? Okay, y'all got the special. But no, for real, I really hope you take him up on it, because you have an anointing to do this. So yeah, this is the camera you're going to speak in, and sis, whatever comes to your mind, because I'll give it, I don't even know. You can drop the mic on me, girl. I don't know.
So I think starting off with the special needs would be the easiest, right? But let's not do that. Let's start to the person that is struggling in their faith, right? Or maybe you're not even in Christ and someone's mentioned his name and you have that desire to know this person. I encourage you to just do it scared. Reach out to someone scared, even if you don't know. Reach out to whether it be a friend, if we're honest, one of my first Bibles came from KSBJ, just texting the hotline. And that was very encouraging for me to know that there's resources out there that I just have to go look for. And if you hear someone or you're drawn to them, like, ask them, hey, what is it about you? Like, what do you have? I want to know more about it. Don't be scared to know what it is that keeps them encouraged. I know for me this year, I know my son's teacher, she was feeling a little defeated, and I knew that God had us there for a purpose, and she wasn't scared to ask for some prayers. No judgment, just some prayers. And if that's what you need and you're scared to reach out to someone, reach out to Kolisha. She will put you in contact with me. Reach out to me. I do not have a problem with praying for you, being there for you, walking with you, and just being that support for you. Because for me, it's very intentional about being the friend that I never had or that I wanted. Sometimes that's all a person needs. Now to my special needs community. And I say this as graceful as possible, but get out there. Show your kids the world. Allow them to live a life with no restraints, no boundaries. Find a church body that is going to embrace you and your child, that is going to be your village, that is going to say, hey, you need a date night, let me let you go out. People are wanting to learn all about your kids, but we have to let them in. We have to have those hard conversations, those conversations that are a little uncomfortable. Oh, my kid does this, my kid does that. Who cares? Let your kid do what your kid does and just be encouraged. Be a part of something. So many people out there want to love on your baby. I know I do. Just find you a community. I know sometimes we get stuck at homes, mamas, and we by ourselves. Talking to the mamas that are stay-at-home moms too. You don't got to be a special needs mom. Moms, find you a group of sisters that are going to lift your hands up. I know me finding my group of sisters has been so rewarding. So I encourage you, find you a body of believers, get plugged in, and just stay connected. If Jesus did it with 12 disciples, what makes us think that we can do it alone? He didn't create us to do it alone. So don't do life alone.
Oh, girl. I'm about to lock you in the house. You can't leave. No, I'm just kidding. Thank y'all for joining us for another episode. Bye.